People are lauding you for arresting them. But when they see extrajudicial killings and when you don't take them through the process of law.
You warned the government.
I warned them not once, several times. I even wrote to them.
But Mr. Leghari, when was enough enough? Wasn't enough too late? Didn't you call the game too late?
Enough was enough when all my advice, whether it related to the corruption in government, whether it related to violation of the constitution vis-a-vis the provinces, whether it related to custodial killings, all those I kept advising, I kept trying to correct the government, save the government in as good a manner as possible. But
how long did the PPP government, how long did the PPP government serve?
Enough was enough when I found that another 10 days and Pakistan would go into default. That was when it was enough.
Do you think that's the right attitude? Do you think taking the nation to the brink, because you've gone on record and you said that as far as you had reports in the first 6 months, this is an interview of you in Pakistan Today, you had reports in the first 6 months that there were misdemeanors by Benazir Bhutto and Asif Zardari. You've also gone and said that you talked to them. Now, instead of talking to them, why didn't you do something about it? Because eventually what ended up happening, that one fine day, you said that Benazir Bhutto and Nawaz Sharif and everybody else who's governed with them has robbed the country of $3 billion. So people accuse you in letters to the editor, in conversations. People accuse you of one simple sin. You acted too late.
Oh, there are people who...
And that's converted, that argument is converted, sir, with the fact that you were partisan.
No, people also accuse me of dissolving the assembly. It's the other group. The other side says, why did you dissolve it?
How do you answer this? How do you answer this question, though? You've been on record saying you had information in the first 6 months as president. You were privy to information in the first 6 months, and it took you 3 years to get rid of this government.
Excuse me. If I'm privy to some information that misdemeanors are being done, as a president, I do not have the right under the Constitution to dissolve the assembly and dismiss that government. It's only when it becomes a pattern, when
You do have the right. You do have the 8th Amendment.
No.
You are the president.
No.
You can enact
under
58(2)(b).
Under 58(2)(b), the action that I ultimately took when it became imperative and nothing else could be done. Otherwise, I think it is the duty of the president to send back wrong decisions.
People also say that with Benazir Bhutto and Nawaz Sharif and you, with this troika, it was also a matter of izzat, of honor, that your protocol was breached, that you were not taken seriously, that you were called things like Farooq Yar, Farooq Bhai, while you were president.
No, Farooq Bhai, yes, she would call me Farooq Bhai.
I'm talking about Zardari.
Zardari never called me anything. He would never address me like that. How dare he or anyone else do that? Nobody ever did that to me. These were all stories that were cooked up and came in the press, and I can't go around, objecting to everything that is written there. But I think I'm on record having rejected all this nonsense.
We have to take a short break here, Mr. Leghari. We're talking to Farooq Ahmed Leghari. You're watching TalkBack. Stay tuned. Welcome back to TalkBack. We're with the former President of Pakistan, Farooq Ahmed Leghari. All right, let's time travel a bit. One of the black spots, so to say, during your presidency, a couple of scandals. First of all, the trip you took out to attend your son's graduation ceremony got a lot of press, good and bad, ugly or whatever you want to call it. Just for the sake of reminding our audience what happened. You take a trip out for a few days. You had with you several members of your family, 10 members of your staff, 7 members of the PTV team, 9 members of the PAF, the Punjab's chief minister and his staff, friends and relatives, high officials of the finance and other departments, and even the PM's cousin. The number one criticism you get, the flack you get, is that you made this a working visit as an afterthought. That it really wasn't a working visit, it was supposed to be a private visit, but you put it on the National Exchequer, you made it a working visit as an afterthought.
Now, I've heard this criticism before. Let me tell you, that trip was essentially at the behest of the Prime Minister, something that I had refused earlier, but it was dubbed by the government as a private visit because we did not want to give official status to it that Benazir wanted for herself as Prime Minister when she visited the US later on.
Well, it's more than a private visit, don't you think?
It was mainly a working visit. It was mainly working for the country.
It was politically ill-advised to take that visit. You visited Washington right at the heels of the Indian Prime Minister Narasimha Rao. First of all, a cold shoulder was expected, and evidently you got a cold shoulder. You never got to meet the American president.
No,
The Pakistani government also requested minutes of the meeting between Narasimha Rao and Bill Clinton and was rebuffed. Nobody
that's
gave.
another matter why they were rebuffed regarding the minutes of the meeting of Clinton and Narasimha Rao. But as far as I was concerned, it was known well before I left that I will not be meeting the US president. I had a meeting with
The vice president.
With the vice president.
And just at that meeting, several congressmen and senators who were invited never came. Your visit wasn't taken seriously by the Americans.
Well,
that's the flack you get.
But that was a decision of the government of Pakistan, not my personal decision. My personal decision was that I will not go.
Mr. Leghari, how can the government of Pakistan decide when the president or when the president should not?
No, the government of
visit
Pakistan,
the United States.
The cabinet, the president of Pakistan, the government of Pakistan always advises the president. And unless there are very serious objections by the president is supposed to go by that advice.
Bottom line, we just read the list out of the people who were around. Do you think that people should be such a long list of people should be put on tap as far as the National Exchequer is concerned? Parts of your family visited, there were reports in newspapers that people visited Disneyland. There were reports that you visited.
Nobody visited
There were reports
Disneyland.
that you
That is
visited your
incorrect.
friends.
Nobody visited Disneyland from our party. We went nowhere near Disneyland.
Moving on, forget Disneyland. But do you think, considering the state of the National Exchequer at that time, which you're very familiar with, you know what was going on, do you think that Pakistan, the nation of Pakistan, could afford such a trip to its president, whether it's a working trip or a private trip?
Yes, but it wasn't an extraordinary trip. It was something that whenever a president or a prime minister...
Do you recall the number your lawyer put up?
No, I don't recall exactly how many went. But there are a number of officials who go. They have to attend meetings. They have to arrange meetings.
Newspapers were saying there was 100 million rupees spent on that trip.
Well, I forget the figure now, but it was never a charge brought against me by anyone.
The papers had a heyday with it.
Well, there were people in the opposition who always tried to find something wrong. And when they couldn't find anything else wrong, they would hang on to a thing like this.
Okay, the second scandal which marked your term was the land scandal, the land deal with Yunus Habib. Now, you have gone on the record several times and made it very clear about what happened. This is effectively, correct me if I'm wrong, but this is what your story is. Your story is that you didn't know this man, you bailed out the Mehran Bank, you just knew him in a professional category.
I never bailed out any bank.
You suggested the bailout of Mehran Bank.
No, I never suggested anything. In what position would I suggest a bailout?
When you were the interim finance minister.
So yes, because I'll tell you why. Now I remember, there were very large funds of the ISI placed in Mehran Bank.
And you wanted to keep the interests of the government at hand.
Yes.
This is your version.
Yes.
You also just knew him in a professional category. You met him at a VIP lounge at an airport. You said, hey, I have some land. Do you have some buyers?
I said, I have land which I want to sell. I was selling my land. I wasn't buying it. And I was selling it at market rate. When my deal was done...
Didn't you bother? No, he did not become notorious
well,
later,
I don't know, but
he was already involved with the Mehran Bank scandal of the late 80s, early 90s.
I wasn't aware of that.
You didn't bother doing a background check?
No, I didn't.
And what about the buyers? Did you do a background check on that?
I've been selling land to sustain my politics and my life over a long period. I've sold much of my ancestral land. And this was a piece of land which I owned with my sisters and my mother. My own share was a very small share in that.